This series centers on a young man who has evolved regeneration abilities and can't die. He gets kidnapped by organ harvesters, escapes them, but soon discovers that his right eye has been transplanted into a serial killer. What do you think happens next? Let's find out. It begins at night, when a man named Dong Soo is kidnapped by some organ traffickers. They take their unconscious victim to a surgeon who begins to open up his body. The surgeon doesn't make use of the appropriate medical tools. Instead, he uses a bolt cutter to harvest Dong Soo's organs. Once he is done, he chops the rest of Dong Soo's body into pieces and disposes of it in a garbage bag. Before he leaves, he finds out that the body parts come alive and are moving in his direction. But it is only a nightmare, and as soon as the surgeon wakes up, he utters the word Connect. Meanwhile, someone uploaded a post on social media about the urban legend of Connect. This catches the attention of a young lady named Irang. She is a web novelist who is currently writing about it, so she reaches out to the sender of the post so that they can exchange ideas. The next day, there is a mesmerizing artwork that quickly catches the attention of everyone passing by. But they suddenly realize that the statue is bleeding. It is now clear that the statue is a dead body that has been preserved, decorated, and put on display. Choi, Park, and Yom, who are police detectives, arrive at the scene and begin to investigate. Somewhere in the crowd is Dong Soo, who is not just alive, but also wearing an eye patch. At the forensic lab, it was discovered that the body has a signature that appears to have been left by the murderer. The detectives realize that the signature looks like a combination of letters P and L. This convinces them that the serial killer on the loose is an artistic sociopath. Meanwhile, Dong Soo realizes that his missing eye must have been transplanted already, as his vision suddenly changes into the point of view of someone else. And when the view is shifted to a horoscope of the letters P and L, it is revealed that the person that received Dong Soo's eye is Jin Seob, the serial killer. He is startled by this revelation, bringing back all the memories from the night he was kidnapped. He remembers how muscle fibers emerge from his open wounds and begins healing him. He managed to get up and pick up one of his eyes. The surgeon then turns to witness his eye go back into its place. In a hurry to escape before the other kidnappers arrive, he leaves without picking up his right eye. By the next day, the detectives are still trying to figure out a connection between the two victims of the killer. In the process, they joke about how Choi is able to detect a suspect whenever his nose bleeds. Meanwhile, a group of kids happens to see Dong Soo's empty eye socket and run off, calling him a monster. This takes him to one of his earliest memories, where he fell from a tree. His broken bones instantly began to heal, and the other kids who witnessed it called him a monster. One of the kidnappers comes across the kids who ran away from Dong Soo and overheard them talking about him. He informs the rest of his gang that Dong Soo is alive. The leader, Mr. Kim, orders them to go looking for him. Apparently, Mr. Kim is the same person who made the online post about the Connect. As such, Irang tracked him to this hideout and has been surveilling the gang's movement ever since. She is intrigued when she hears about their plans to search for Dong Soo, who they believe is a Connect. Later that night, the kidnappers find him, but he quickly notices them and runs away. He barely managed to escape them on his own before he ran into Irang. To be sure he really is a Connect, she cuts his knee and watches it heal immediately before helping him elude the gang. The next morning, Dong Soo feels a sharp pain in his right eye socket. His point of view changes again and he sees that Jin Seob is feeling the pain too. He quickly recognizes the surroundings of Jin Seob's current location and sets out to recover his eye so he can stop the recurring pain. At the station, the detectives are worried that the killer is gaining popularity and support for his corpse art. Choi studies the photos of the crime scene and notices Dong Soo standing in the crowd dressed suspiciously. Then came the nosebleed. Park and Yom see this and get excited that they finally have a lead. Dong Soo goes to Jin Seob's office like he saw in the briefly shared vision and begins to look for him. He gets another shared vision that points him in the direction of a restaurant. As he arrives, he bumps into Jin Seob but doesn't realize that this is the person he has been searching for. At night, he decides to do something different and searches the internet for updates on the corpse art case. When he finds nothing useful, he remembers the P and L symbol of the serial killer that he saw in one of his visions. He goes to an astrologer named Youngran for answers. They discuss for a while and he figures out that the killer has drawn inspiration from the planets Pluto and Venus, which represent death and art. As soon as Dong Soo leaves, Youngran calls the police. She tells the detectives everything she and Dong Soo have figured out. This only increases their suspicion of him. The next morning, another victim of Jin Seob is found. Dong Soo arrives at the crime scene, but has to run once he sees that the kidnappers are also there. The detectives pick up on this and join in the chase for Dong Soo, but only manage to catch one of the kidnappers. Dong Soo is caught by one of the gangs who cut off his arm. He is distracted by the arm attaching itself back to Dong Soo, so Irang seizes the opportunity to rescue Dong Soo. At the same time, Jin Seob is confronted by two of his co-workers who stumbled on his sketchpad and figured out that he is the one behind the corpse art displays. He attacks them, and in the process, Dong Soo gets a shared vision and rushes to the building. Unfortunately, it is too late as he is greeted by a body that was thrown from the rooftop. The second body is found on the rooftop, and the police are informed. Before they arrive, Dong Soo follows Jin Seob into the restroom but doesn't realize that Jin Seob enters one of the stalls, so he accuses the wrong person. Because of this misunderstanding, Dong Soo is caught by the police and they believe he is behind everything. Fortunately, Irang shows up again and rescues him. At the station, Choi and Park go through the security tapes and realize that Dong Soo couldn't have committed the crimes on the rooftop because he entered the building after the body had fallen. Meanwhile, Jin Seob has figured out that Dong Soo can see through his right eye. To further confirm his suspicions, the detectives approach him to question him. With a calm demeanor, he dismisses their questions. Outside, Choi tells Park that he got the wrong vibe from Jin Seob. Dong Soo meets up with Irang. The two finally discuss Connects and how she was saved by a young Connect when she was little. Irang mentions that she suspects Jiando Pharmaceuticals, but Dong Soo is more concerned about stopping Jin Seob. They go out to get dinner, and that is when Dong Soo gets a vision. He then realizes that Jin Seob knows about him and is most likely coming after him. The detectives eventually had to release the kidnapper due to insufficient evidence. Still, they make plans to keep an eye on him. At this point, Mr. Kim has figured that Jin Seob is the recipient of the Connect Eye and has also had him investigated. He finds out that Jin Seob has a terminal illness and sends Woo Jin to go after him. Irang hears this on her listening device and follows Woo Jin. The next day, she tells Dong Soo everything she has heard and how she discovered where Jin Seob lives. Suddenly, he gets a vision from Jin Seob, who uses his eyes to send Dong Soo a message. Dong Soo sees the outline of his next murder plan and is horrified when he sees that two innocent children are involved. It is clear to him that Jin Seob knows who he is and is now willing to use the eye to manipulate him. But this doesn't stop him as he resolves to stop this murder before it happens. Later, Jin Seob goes to the surgeon that removes Dong Soo's eye and assaults him. Meanwhile, Dong Soo gets caught by the police. He is distraught because he knows that if the case is not resolved soon, no one else will be able to save Jin Seob's latest targets. The first 3 episodes have set up each of the characters and the conflict of the series perfectly. Now that the race between Dong Soo and Jin Seob is on, who do you think would find the other first? Turn on the post notification so you don't miss part 2.